Welcome to the Voice of the Citizen. This is your host, Harjot Singh. We're all concerned with what happens at the federal level, but we believe we are more directly and more immediately affected by what happens in our local government. Today, we have with us Jen Hebert, who's a candidate for Huntington Town Council. Jen, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be here and so glad for the opportunity to speak to your fans out there and your community.
Jen, some of us have known you for a while. I would ask you to let our new listeners, new viewers know a little about yourself. Can you please tell us a little about yourself first?
Sure. So my name is Jen Hebert, and I am one of the candidates running for Huntington Town Council. I've been an active community member in Huntington for about 30 years. My husband and I moved here 30 years ago. We have raised our 3 boys in the Huntington School District. During their time in that school district, I was actually elected to the school board. So I was a trustee of Huntington School Board for 9 years. I actually finished the last term as the president. And I also currently serve on the library board in my town. So I'm on the trustee on the Huntington Public Library. And the reason I mention those 2 things particularly right up front is that it demonstrates my commitment to our community here and how much I enjoy serving the community, even when it's for free, frankly, because many people don't realize a school board trustee is a time-intensive and very important job that you do for free because it means something to you. And I think that's indicative of who I am and the kind of leader that I would be, given the opportunity to represent at Huntington Town Council, because I really do want to be the voice for our community. On the other side of that, you should know that professionally I'm an educator and I have taught public school when I lived in Massachusetts. And I'm currently and have been for about 12 years the director of St. John's Nursery School, which is right in Huntington Village.
Mm-hmm. Jen, when personally, when I think of a candidate for something like the local town council, I look for somebody who's accessible, who has integrity, and who has decency. And these are the qualities we have known you for, for a long time. I would like to ask you this. Do you think for an election like this, the party affiliation of a candidate matters?
I'm so glad you asked that question because no, at a local level, what I've been telling people, and just so you know, voters out there, I have been in every corner of Huntington Township knocking doors, and it hasn't mattered to me whether there's a Democrat or a Republican or a unaffiliated voter standing on the other side of that door. What's mattered to me is that they are a community member and a neighbor in Huntington, and their concerns matter to me. And that's what I've tried to get across. On a local level, here's my advice for you, if anybody is looking for advice. On a local level, you have the opportunity to really get to know your candidates, right? Because not only are there meet the candidate opportunities and we're on social media and everything like that, but you can actually come to events where you can meet us face to face. And I have been to plenty all over the township. And in that way, your local leadership really matters because given the opportunity, again, I would be so answerable to all of you. I am right in your community. You can see me face to face. And you can decide whether you trust me, whether you think I'm doing a good job, whether you believe that I mean what I say. And so my advice to everybody is to go out and do your homework. You have a month. The election is November 4th. Do your homework because I am that confident that no matter what party you are affiliated with, no matter where in the township you live, if you do your homework, you're going to come to the conclusion that I'm actually your best choice for candidate and best choice for representation at the Huntington Town Council table. So I urge you to do your homework.
Jen, that's why we bring you here to this show, because we want the people, people have certain feelings about certain feelings or certain experiences at the local level, and they want something done.
Yeah.
it's important for them to know who are the candidates who are talking what they are talking, or who are the ones who are opposing what they're talking. Unless they have some dialogue, there's no way for them to know.
Absolutely. And, obviously not everybody has the time to keep on top of the daily occurrences in the town and whether their representatives are doing what they really want them to do. But I will say that as I've gone around town and knocked on doors and met plenty of neighbors and residents and taxpayers, one of the general themes that I hear is that, and this has nothing to do with the people on the town board in a personal way. I think they're all very nice people, and I truly hope to work with them. But the direction that the town board is going in right now is generally not the direction that the community really wants them to be heading. And for some reason, that message isn't being heard. So when you get somebody like me at the table, what you have, first of all, is somebody who's incredibly accessible. When you use that word, that's the truth about me. I have a lot of practice. I've had nine years on a school board where I was literally the person who heard the concerns of the parents and the staff and the community, the taxpayers. It was my job to be accessible and to be a resource. And so I really am great at that. But I also think that you want somebody that you can trust. And again, I do feel that I have earned the community's trust through the work that I've already done in the school district, on the library board, and just generally as a community member, because I really have been involved, as much as possible and in trying to be an asset to our community. And I hope people will see that truly. And again, it has nothing to do personally with the board or with partisan politics or with any particular person. It really has to do with the culture of the board right now and the feeling that right now our community feels we're not heading in the right direction and that they'd like better representation at the table. And I'm a really good voice at that table because I am not afraid to speak truth to power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we understand the board is 5-0 at present, occupied by one party, which
Yes.
Doesn't sound very acceptable to the general population, I would say.
Something, I'm a big believer in balance, and I mean that sincerely. I'm not sure that a 5-0 board either way is a good idea. I think that, and I've said this before, and I truly believe this, and I actually lived this on a school board because the people I sat across with at the table of the school board were not necessarily people that I agreed with on everything. In fact, I can tell you without a doubt that I didn't agree with them on everything. There were a lot of important issues where we disagreed. But the point is always to try to pull in the same direction. And I think when you have people who have different ideas and perspectives and come from a different direction, when you get that push and pull, that's when you get the best solution to your problem. Because basically what you get down to is the crux of the problem and the most viable and acceptable solution. And so I actually think the push and pull is a good thing when it comes to leadership and making decisions.
Talking about issues now, I was looking at your website and there were 3 main issues you identified: overdevelopment, housing, and support for small business. Housing is a big issue in our township. And if we go a little back, I understand in 2008, the town board, which had a 5-0 majority of the Democrats at that time, adopted a master plan called Horizons 2020.
Yeah.
Right. So they plan to build around 2,800 affordable houses. And as we understand, as of today, not more than 18 to 20% of that has been achieved.
Yeah.
What do you think? Why was that plan not successful? Do you support that plan? And what do you intend to do in that regards?
So I have looked at that plan. Actually, I ran before, and I'll explain that later, but I looked at that plan even the first time I ran because I wanted to see what the things were they were proposing. And frankly, had they gone ahead with enacting that plan, it would have solved a lot of the problems that we're having now. Because not only were they talking about, some diversity of housing stock, which we do need. I have boys that are in their 20s. If they want to stay in Huntington, I'd like for them to be able to. And right now, there really are not opportunities for them to stay in Huntington that they can afford. So, but also there, and this is important, as that development went on, there would be additions to infrastructure, roadways would have been widened, sewers would have been added. There were all different ways that they were going to try to increase the amount of housing that we had, but at the same time also make sure that the infrastructure and that the pieces were in place to make that actually possible. And unfortunately, really none of that went ahead. And I would say that a lot of the development and the building that has gone on in Huntington has not met the requirements that were laid out in that plan. So in other words, things have been built, but not things that are affordable to most people. Right around the corner from me, I live in Huntington Village area. On Spring Road, there was a new development put up, and it's these townhouses, and they're lovely, but they're $1.7 million a townhouse. If that's the kind of housing that's being added, and of course, you need some of that housing too, but if that's what's going up, you're not really solving the problem that they're pretending to solve. Let's face it, if you're saying that what we need is more diverse housing because we need housing for young adults and young professionals and single income earners and first responders and seniors who want to downsize, that doesn't solve that problem. So what I'd like to do is actually tackle the real problem and not pretend that I'm doing that while really what's going up is stuff that most of the people that are here simply, can't afford.
I was looking at your plans, and one of the things that you propose is converting those storefronts, which are lying vacant for some time, maybe do a mixed use zoning and all that, and develop some affordable housing. Can you elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, and that's an idea that I'd love to claim as my own, but it's an idea that I think many people have put out there because I think a lot of people are facing the reality of the situation, which is that to some degree, we have empty commercial spaces because, some businesses they folded over the pandemic. They've moved over to being completely online. They've lost out to the major big box stores. So we don't want empty buildings and empty spaces in Huntington. We want our town to be vibrant, and we want to be getting our tax revenue from that because that's how we, help make Huntington more affordable. But we have to get the people who build on board to do that. They need to also be able to make money, and it's not necessarily profitable for them to convert those. So we need to work with them to find ways that we can convince them that this is important to our area and that this is what we want built, but also work with them to make sure that they're not losing money on it. Because frankly, I don't want to see a business person in town losing money. My dad is a small business owner. He started a small business 50 years ago. And I'd like to support the small businesses in town and anybody that wants to do business in town. But I also want to make sure that what they're doing is actually adding to our community and not, and that the community benefits from that sort of, project.
Just trying to understand the housing situation.
Tricky.
We see the population of Huntington has not grown multifold in the last 10 years.
No.
So what is it that we're trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve more affordable housing. Is that the aim is?
Yeah, so I think, it's two sides of a coin. And frankly, it is the most challenging issue that anybody who is accepting a position of leadership in Huntington is going to face. Because you have a lot of people who believe that we want to keep our young people here. We pay a lot of money and put a lot of effort into educating them well. Mm-hmm. And then they leave because they can't find a place to be here, right? Yep. Because they can't live, it's not affordable, so they go. And over the course of years and decades, that's going to hurt our area in a bunch of ways. I mean, that's, it's a brain drain. But also, you don't want a place to lose young people all the time. Like I said, you want it to be dynamic. So you do need to find ways to make it more affordable to live in the Huntington area so that we can retain young people. And like I said, that older people can stay. They can sell their house and downsize, but still stay in the community that they love. On the flip side of that, and this is also important to me because I'm a person who really cares deeply about the environment, many people don't want to see more of the green spaces in Huntington developed and gone. And the truth is, in the Huntington Township, there are a finite and small amount of green spaces left. Even these small parcels in between bigger neighborhoods, that are suddenly being discovered, and then all of a sudden there are 3 houses on it. So there needs to be a balance there. And I think you can achieve both things at once. But the most important part of that is, again, that you have the public's trust and that you've been leading in a transparent way that allows them to understand the challenge, but also understand why you're making the decisions. That way, even when they disagree with you about the decision, they'll respect that you've made it for the right reason. And I do think that one of the reasons that this issue is so difficult in Huntington and that so many people have a very knee-jerk reaction to it is that they don't trust the process right now, and that needs to be addressed. It really does. And I think I'm the kind of person that can come to that board and start to change the culture of it in a way that would build trust within our community.
I think that might be the most important thing we need at all levels of government right now.
I agree. Yeah.
The other thing that you talk about is small business. And I believe that is, inherently attached to the first issue of housing as well.
Yeah.
And that goes into how you look at that community, at this community. There was a time where communities like ours were seen as nothing more than bedroom communities for people working in Manhattan and other places. It might still retain that character, but with a lot of economic activity, in Melville Corridor, Huntington, a lot of people have started working in the town itself.
Yeah.
Right? So to retain talent or to invite talent, to invite young people, housing becomes a very major issue, even for development of small business. Is that right?
That is absolutely right. I mean, if you want to retain your small businesses and support the people who have their businesses in our different parts of our township, you need to, first of all, continually attract, new workers and people who come to the table with skills. And you can't do that if you don't have housing to support them. And I actually have an interesting story so that's a perfect example of this. Mm-hmm. So we recently hired a new director for the Huntington Public Library, and he's brilliant and he's wonderful. As we were considering what kind of package to offer him, we had to take into account the fact that if we really want him to be invested in the community and invested in the job and accessible, because it's a bigger job than people would ever imagine, it's very time intensive, that he'd need to live closer. And right now he was at this point commuting, and still is actually, from I think somewhere within Queens, because he can't live close to here to his job. And the man is brilliant and well educated. And this, again, is not a low level job. This is an important job. He runs, this Huntington Public Library has 2 branches. It's a big job. And literally, like I said, we had to start to think in terms of, well, how can we help him to live within the community when it's so expensive? Because it was important to us that he, have the accessibility to his job, that he could really give it his all.
Absolutely. So this housing issue is
it's
just as important for business as well. Do you have any other plans or ideas to support the local small business here?
Well, I will say I'm very proud to have, first of all, gotten the endorsement of several of the labor unions in town. And I'm very interested in working with our labor unions because, first of all, I just think it's such an it deserves so much more attention and respect, the labor union jobs. They really do. You're looking at a person who went to school and got a master's degree from Tufts University, and I'm so grateful for the education that I have. That being said, there are people who left and didn't go to college and went into the labor trades, and they've made a remarkable living for themselves. And I don't think that those trades get enough attention. I think it's really important that kids in our school districts now are given, obviously, every opportunity to excel and to head on a college path if that's the path they want. But I think the school districts could do a better job of also talking up some of the labor jobs for kids for whom college doesn't have the same interest. And then, they should know that there are other really good options for careers ahead of them. So that's one thing, not that that's a small business thing, but it does have to do with workers. And I think that's really important because the jobs are changing every day. If you asked me, the types of jobs that were available to people when I was first going to college, the list looks completely different than the list now. There was no cybersecurity. There was no, AI, any of that. So things have really changed. And yet those labor jobs remain so important. Those are the people that were on our front lines, frankly, even during the pandemic. So other thing is about the small businesses, and I mentioned this just in passing before. I'm so proud to be the daughter of a man that started out his own small business about 50 years ago. He had 3 young children. He took the risk of leaving a much larger company and starting out on his own. And to this day, the company still is supporting, several family members and others. And I just would want to do anything I can to support small businesses within Huntington because, frankly, it's personal to me. And I know the kinds of challenges that small businesses face. And I know that my dad never took a sick day. He went to work whether he was feeling well or not. And, they could use the support of the town because there are issues that they shouldn't have to be spending their time grappling with, whether it's that there are too many wires strung up above Wall Street because of all the different apartments and they never take the old wires down and now it just looks like a spider's web up there, or whether it has to do more with getting, licensing or it's something with the building, if they need zoning or planning or anything like that. I'd like to be a resource.
Yeah, the town needs to be more responsive to the needs of seniors particularly.
Yes, I think, responsive to everybody. And the town does some other things. They do some things really well, too. I mean, credit where credit is due. We have a lot of really nice things that go on in the town, obviously, and we're very fortunate to live in such a wonderful place. But there is always room for improvement. And frankly, I think fresh eyes on a job is something that's really important. I think that, frankly, that's why I think jobs should be term limited. I think that there is something to somebody new coming in and looking at something that everybody else has been looking at for the last several years and seeing it differently.
What else do you think is an issue in this election?
I'll tell you one of the issues that's really most important to me too, and I've learned so much about it over the last several months, and it's been quite an education, is our water quality issues. And it's interesting, again, that's one of those issues that seems to cut straight across party lines and no matter where in the township, because most people are at least partially aware of the fact that we live on top of our sole source of water that we drink. And we, have several concerns on that front. Obviously, just like many places, we're worried about the microplastics and the contaminants from the pesticides and fertilizers, and even from the car, the rubber tires give off these microplastics that end up in our harbors and our water. The other thing, though, is that we are in many areas of Huntington still on antiquated septic systems. And so I've been learning about that. And you would think that going over to sewers would be the perfect answer, right? That if we did that, that would solve all the problems. That's not actually the case. And I learned that because Nassau County, has been on sewers since I was little, and that's a while ago. And what happened there is if you don't take that water and put it through a sewage treatment plant that's able to really treat it and clean it so that it can be reused to water, green spaces and things like that. Not to treat it to make it potable again, but to treat it so that it can be used, like I said, for those kinds of things, watering lawns and golf courses and whatever. What happens is at these sewage treatment plants, most of the ones we have on Long Island, they treat the water just to the point where they take out the worst solids and then they dump it back into the ocean, which is bad twofold. One is that it still has contaminants in it, and now it's in our water, where we swim and our fish are, and, all kinds of things. So, but the other problem is when you do that, and I'm sorry, this is kind of wonky, so stick with me. But when you do that, what happens is you reduce the water in the aquifers because you're taking water out of the aquifers, and instead of putting it back, you're dumping it in the ocean. When you reduce the aquifers that much, not only do you run the risk of not having drinking water, but you also run the risk of having saltwater intrusion, which then makes drinking water undrinkable. So let's not let it get to that. Okay, let's be proactive and really do something about our our drinking water and our harbors and water.
These are really very serious issues, and
Very serious.
What the challenge is that everyone wants these improvements. Everyone needs these improvements.
Yes.
But I don't know why. I think at the local level, people for some reason are not paying attention enough to what's going on.
Yeah, locally. I can't tell you how many times, and I'll say it to all of you right now, local elections are really important. They really matter. And they don't get a lot of attention because, as we all know, national politics kind of sucks the oxygen out of every room that you're in. But on a local level, we're your first line of service and representation and defense, frankly, so that when you're in trouble, you're not going to reach out to your state senator right away. You're going to see what your local people can do for you. And when you have me, you have somebody who's literally going to answer your phone or your email or the door. So, I don't know how many people would say that and mean it, but I actually mean it.
Yeah. Whether we are Republicans, Democrats, or Independents, we all
care.
need clean water.
Yeah.
This important election is very important, like all elections. The local election we have is on November 4th.
Yes.
And we are, 4 weeks away, I guess.
Yes, we are. And actually in New York, we're lucky enough to have early voting. So if you are, available to get out and vote before November 4th, I urge you to do that as well. You never know what's going to happen on November 4th. You might get, who knows? You get on a train, it's late, it's delayed, you wake up, you're sick, you can't get out. So if you can early vote, those are votes in the bank. And but no matter what you do, no matter who you're voting for, just get out and vote. And I mean that sincerely. Get out and vote. We need you. Don't waste your vote. Don't let apathy decide who's going to be your leadership come November.
Your vote is really important. Jen, before we let you go, you want to tell the voters again why you are the best candidate for this election?
Sure, I would love that opportunity. So I am Jen Hebert, one more time. Jen Hebert, running for Huntington Town Council. And I am your best choice because no matter what issue you're talking about that is affecting the town and affecting our community, I am going to represent you in a way that brings integrity, transparency, and dedication to the job. I'm a hard worker. I'm a quick study. And I want nothing more than to represent everybody that lives in Huntington. And I truly hope for the opportunity.
Jen, thank you so much for taking all the time speaking with us today. We wish you all the very best for the campaign ahead.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.